after one. Don't video it right now.
Well, here you go.
Oh, shit.
Let's see if that works.
Did you already hit
It's
it?
going. It should be going. I don't know. Ask anybody if they can see it. Hi, people. You're coming in.
Somebody's got to get something
Randy
up.
Bear is now live.
Yes, live.
Oh, we got 3 people.
Okay, you guys, I don't know what to say here.
Okay, hurry up, go.
We have gotten rid of both phones. We are on a totally new system now. Let's try and make this work. I got Randy with me. I got Rick with me. We're from the 707.
I don't know.
And you got to bear with me, guys. I
my
tried
phone.
to. I tried to do a little bit of tech work to try and figure out how this stuff works, being that I've never done this before, and it didn't work out, and the time came and we had to go live, and that's why we're having problems here, so bear with me. We're doing this for the little guy, the people that are just getting into this, that are getting bad advice on the internet. I want to start out first with saying that a lot of the stuff and the suspension techniques that we're going to be covering here tonight happen to cover just about anything that's slash based or SCT based. So let's start off with this one. As you can see, that this is just a stock Traxxas slash. This is my daughter's car. It's got a Valenian in it, and she goes out and you know, she's done pretty well with it. But the what's that? Oh, this is, you're making sounds and so anyway. What will work on this car for the new guys that are starting and the new guys that have, you know, just the basic chassis, a lot of the stuff that we cover on the bigger race cars here is definitely going to transfer over to this. So 90% of the tricks that we've done to this car, we've done to this car, we've done to this car. So Ricky's here. Ricky runs pretty much, you know, what I'm running, which is a slash or a Traxxas base, which is highly modified, so not a lot of it's still Traxxas. We've put a lot of the technology I've come up with and a lot of the chassis tuning that I've done into his car, and it just works. I had Randy here though, because Randy's got an Associated car, and I know that Associated's getting ready to come out with their drag car, and there are more and more people starting to use Associated, because let's face it, I mean, Associated, they're rock stars, so they always have been since the 80s. I love Associated. This car does very, very well. Again, it's on the 707 list. Very, very fast list. One of the fastest in the nation. So let's get right into some chassis techniques. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is it's the biggest problem that I've seen beginners get into this with, and that is they'll do their burnout, whatever they're doing, and they'll launch the car, and the car will either do a donut 5 feet out, or it'll go hard right or hard left. Now, what's happening when that happens is one wheel will become unloaded, and it will send the car, so let's say this right wheel here comes unloaded and it starts to spin, it loses traction. Well, it's going to set the car into a hard right-hand turn. Now with that, the chassis is going to lean with it as it goes into the turn. Here, turn that off for me. And as it goes into the turn, it's going to lean too much, and when there's a certain point of no return there, to where if it leans over too much, it's going to really shoot off. There's going to be no recovering from that. So that was one of the problems that I had with my cars when I started about 3 years ago, and I immediately came up with a solution. And I kid you not, I fixed maybe 50 or 60 different people's cars with this trick. And what this trick is, this car has, and this car has, the Associated car, the custom handmade car, the stock Traxxas car, #1 on the 707 list car right here, and then Ricky's beautiful car down here, that all have this trick. Now what this trick is, if you come in close here, so we'll get to what's inside the shock in a minute, but what I like to do is I like to take a battery. Can you hand me that battery there real quick? I like to have my motor and my speed control and everything in the car, and I put the battery in and I push it down. And where I let go, where the chassis naturally wants to set up and stay at, is the distance at which I'll make that shock. Oh, can you see that? Let me force it down. If you get in there real close, what that is, that's just a little piece of nitro fuel line. And what that does is, if the car wants to go one way, it's going to hit that shock tubing, and it's going to give it something to hold up on, and it's not going to to veer one way or the other, and that really will help you recover with a car that's going hard one way. So I know that when I first met Randy was having that problem, right?
Yep.
And tell us about what you experienced with it, Randy.
Sometimes a cartwheel, end over end, barrel roll. It was unpredictable, actually, pretty much. There wasn't no telling which way it would go.
But that all started from a hard lean,
yes,
the diff and load to the hard lean.
Out, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the front end started bottoming the shock out, and then whichever way it was going, it just.
I believe that was the first day I ever met you.
Yes.
And I came over and I gave him a little piece of shock tubing, and we put it on his car, and what happened?
It 100% difference. The car still wanted to jump and go one direction or the other, but it didn't want to barrel roll, didn't want to spin out of control. It was more manageable. It became more manageable.
Now Ricky uses, as you can see here, Ricky's using the same technology on his. Every car is going to have a different ride height. We'll get into that in a minute. But you know, like I said, this specific car with the battery, it's going to run everything but the body. Sometimes I'll even I'll throw in something to emulate the body weight too, and get it all down, and it kind of stops right there at that stop. So if the car lifts during a launch and it wants to unload and come over and start leaning, it's going to hit that security arm of shock tubing in there, and it's going to hold the car up, and it's going to work. So Ricky was lucky enough to have that be one of the things I was, when I was helping him set the car up, one of the tips I gave him, it's the number one thing cars got to have, number one thing. And so Ricky's never really experienced the car without it, and the uncontrollable or the uncontrollability that it had. So another thing I want to talk about, let's move on, let's throw that back over there, is that most people that are getting into this, even the new guys, they're coming from a world where they had a dirt buggy or something like that, and a neutral chassis is 9 times out of 10, unless you're really fine tuning at a race that's like an off-road race that's got a really hard a sweeper at one end, and you want to set up for that to be as fast as you can, and the rest of the setup works throughout the race. And that is that these cars, everybody needs to get that out of their mind. These cars are not set up with a neutral chassis. These cars have wedge in them. So once you get the car to not lean over as hard, and it's now starting to want to go kind of straight, but it's still kind of pulling hard, and what you can do is the big adjustment in the chassis that I've found with my cars to get it within the 90th percentile of going straight is to add a different bit of wedge back here. Let's put this over here. And what I'm talking about with that, if you can come in here, is you can see I got a bunch of shock spring preload over here, and over here I don't have as much. Now that's not going to be the same on every car, so you can't really look at this and go, oh, that's what I'm going to do. What Dan did at his car, because that's not going to work for your car. Well, 99% chance it's not going to work for your car. But that's going to get the hard pull out of it. And then after the hard pull is out of it, and the car will start to get more consistent. And when the car starts to get more consistent and you have slight veers, and you do another hit, and it's the same slight veer, and then you do a third hit, it's the same slight veer. What you can do is you can fine tune that last little bit of veering out with a wheelie bar. I only use 10-inch bars. They're 10 inches long. We used to use 8s. The 10s just give you a little bit more controllability of the chassis. And this is a huge tuning part of the game. My whole cars, I don't know about you guys, but my whole car, that launch, to get that perfect launch, my car, everybody always says, Dan, your cars are straight as an arrow. How do you do it? It's because I fine tune with that wheelie bar. Now what I'm about to explain to you has to get reset every single time that you go to do a hit. You put it on the line, you got to reset the wheelie bar, okay? So the first part of a wheelie bar, the way I do it, is if I put a new car together, I'll go out and I'll set the wheelie bar up high, and I'll do a launch, and I'll let the front wheels come off the ground. Then I'll slowly start bringing it down in increments until the front wheels just touch on a launch, okay? So the car will come up, but the front wheels will settle, and I'll regain my steering. If you go too low with it, it's going to lift the rear of the car up, and you're gonna lose bite on the rear tires. So you don't want to go too low on the bar because it'll have an adverse effect. But once you get the wheelie bar height set and you still have a little steering, now why is steering so important, guys?
Don't crash.
Well, that's one of them, but what's in a high competitive, there are going to be no crashes. These are top two guys running and one guy veers off. Why is the steering so important?
Correct, keep going.
Because I'll tell you why. If this car's running like it is on race day and you line up against me and you're off and your wheels are in the air and your car veers off and you got to pedal the car, you're probably not going to win the round. That's why. You got to have steering, front wheels. We'll get into tires in another episode and stuff like that. But having steering work for the car is very, very important. So the last thing I want to talk about is the adjustment. So let's say this car is slightly going right every time I do a pass. It's making it all the way down the lane, and it's controllable because now at this point I've set my bar and I have a little bit of steering, but it still keeps going right no matter what I do. Well, what I can do is I can do an opposite side, what I call a tweak down. So I'll give it a little left bar. And I don't know if you can see that in the shot, but how that bar on the left-hand side is tweaked down. Well, what that's going to do is if a car is going right, it means it's leaning too hard on the left. Okay? Same thing with the other way. If the car is going left, it's leaning too hard on the right. And the wheelie bar, granted, if your car is going way off, you need to rewind the tape and go back to the rear shock space or the spring preload segment of this, because that's how you get most of it out. The actual wheelie bar tweak that I just showed you is actually just a fine adjustment for you. You really just need a little bit. Okay, so let's go over some of the chassis. Let's start with Rick. Rick, tell us a little bit about the chassis you have here and how it is so similar to just this, it's grandpa or sister, stock slash that most of the guys have out there.
So this is Extreme Racing. Jake sells them there in Runner Park. Basically, you take that stock slash, unbolt everything, and it bolts right to this chassis. You lose about, I think it was 8 ounces of weight in total going from that to that. And it's pretty rigid, durable. Haven't had any problems with it.
Lightweight.
Car goes straight, and part of the whole thing was to be as light as I can be.
Okay, thanks,
So,
Ricky. The reason why I got so many cars up here is as we go through each car, you'll notice that even though they're built of the same, other than the Associated, they're built of the same parts, they're all traxxas parts. They all look different, they're all different chassis, they all can be set up the exact same. So, the next chassis that we have, just moving our way this way, this is the #1 car on the Sonoma County list. This is the Ghost car. It is a Black Widow chassis. And it's nothing special. It's just a G10 fiberglass chassis, and it's light and it's rigid, and it's always worked good for me. So I've never really had to change the chassis on it or anything like that. And everything that me and Ricky incorporated into this chassis from Jake's Performance Hobbies, and this chassis, it's the same. I mean, whether it's the shocks up here having the fuel line on it to keep it from leaning, or the wedge that we've added, or everything we've done on the wheelie bars, it's pretty much the same thing. We've gone over the stock car. I believe this is a lot of you guys that are getting into this. This might be just a quick second here. This might be something that you guys are kind of running. This is my daughter's car, and it is just a stock slash. It's got a Valenti, and I'm getting ready to hop her up to a hobby wing. It's time, but this car, don't be fooled by some of these fancy cars. A good tuner can make this car damn near just as fast as one of these other race chassis. Okay, so if your budget only allows you to do this, and you go this far, and you still want to be into this, as long as you're running the right motors and speed controls and stuff like that to keep up with everybody power wise, you can lean on this chassis. You can lean on it hard. So let's move on. This chassis here, this is actually a chassis that I custom designed with a guy back in the South. I believe he's in Alabama. And he had me kind of sketch it, and then he took my sketch and my dimensions, and he put it into AutoCAD, and he cut one off. It's a one-off chassis. I have backup parts for everything, but this is We don't really have a name for that. We'll call it the Judd 1. This is a very high dollar, lightweight car. Weighs about 4.1 pounds, which is very, very light for a door slammer car. And this car was actually supposed to be the replacement for the Ghost car, but the Ghost car just does what the Ghost car does. So this has become a practice car and a test platform. We want to test a different motor. And by the way, motors, speed controls, batteries, tires, I mean, anything else that goes with these drag cars, we'll be covering that another night. But let's go on with chassis. This is just a G10 copy of what Ricky has over here. And this is probably what's going to end up being on my daughter's Traxxas here. And the last chassis we have on the table, and the reason why I saved it for last is because it is unlike any of these cars. Even though all these cars are different, all these cars are Traxxas-based vehicles, okay? Some of them not so modified, some of them so modified you can barely recognize what kind of car they are. But this is the associated...
It's Reflex DB10, Pro SC10, or the Trophy Rat. They are all the same, three are the same. They're all based off the B5 platform, just the short course wheelbase. Other than that, it's like any other short course truck. I mean, they're all pretty much the same, other than who makes them.
So for those diehard Associated fans
that's me.
that want to get into this, I love Associated Rocks, Team Associated. If you're watching, probably not, but hey, if you are, okay. They're great chassis. I'm very, very, very impressed still with AE's quality. Tell us, Randy, tell us a little bit about what we've talked about with these other vehicles that you know coexist with what you got.
Shock preload, definitely. I have my preloads. They're not the same on either side. The suspension arm stuff. Some of it has to be my stuff has to be modified more so than the Traxxas stuff because they're starting to get more support, but there wasn't a lot of support when I started doing the associated stuff. So I had to modify to make stuff work for my car. My wheelie bar mount is not associated. It's wheelie bar mount is RPM for Traxxas, the Traxxas style ladder bar from Jake's. I had to adapt and make my own mounts, make my own custom mounting brackets for the bottom. Everywhere it bolted, I had to heat and stretch plastic pieces to make it work because I didn't.
And let's hope you're gonna get a little bit more drag racing per se, SCT based associated support once AE starts releasing parts in this new car. Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of parts that are direct bolt onto this thing.
That's what I'm hoping for, especially in the transmission area, because the transmission had there's not really much support for like gearing for metal gears other than you can get a hardened idler gear, which is that you have to do because once you start adding power to it, it just strips it out immediately. I put a hardened idler gear in there. Still running a stock gear diff. I had to replace the outside gear because they started eating the plastic. It just happens because there's no other.
Suspension-wise, the three things that I've covered are the shock tubing to hold the front end up in a hard lean. The different preloads adding wedge to the rear to straighten the car, and will you even tweak your wheelie bar in your car?
I do have to tweak my wheelie bar every once in a while. Sometimes she hits straight, sometimes it doesn't like to, so give it a little twist and. It depends on how hard, because start twisting too much, it's going to take off the way you don't want it to. It won't go straight. It's all on a feel. You get used to twisting your wheelie bar. You'll start feeling it where it's starting to be consistent. How much you'll see it, you'll take a hit and you'll be like, all right, I know how much I need to twist so it does hit straight instead of going the opposite way of where it was going before.
And I've had my car run one time and have a certain bar and run that all day long, and it'll be hitting so hard that if I give it a certain amount of, say, right tweak and I hit, when I bring it back, this is what I mean by readjusting the bar. If I put a right bar tweak, most days on my white car, the Ghost car, it hits so hard that by the time I'm done the hit and I come back, that wheelie bar the car will have leaned on that bar so hard that it straightened the bar back out. So once you find your sweet spot with the wheelie bar, you got to watch the wheelie bar every time you put the car down. Okay, it's very, very crucial. Speaking of bad advice, again for the new guys, a couple months ago we had this guy chime in. He swear to God, man, his car should run 2 flats and he don't need no wheelie bar and this and that. And we got into it with him and we're just like, look, dude, well, we're not trying to be, but it wasn't that I was getting on him for not knowing what he's talking about, but it was the fact that he was taking what he was taking what he didn't know what he was talking about and and giving it to somebody who's a new guy, and all that was going to do is confuse this new guy, and that's how we have people, you know, leave the sport. And I definitely, the way this is going, I don't want that to happen, right, guys?
Yeah, no, it's blowing up good.
Okay, so this is a good thing to show. This is one of my must-dos. All these cars have it except for the traxxas slash. This car technically hasn't been built yet, but it's a good. This is a good model one I'm about to show you for why we do on the rest of the cars what we do. So about 2 years ago, I was having, even with the G10 chassis over here on the Ghost car, I was having this problem. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this thing, it twists. So the wheelie bar hangs off the traxxas rear end, excuse me, and with the RPM mount, and it having a plastic case, if that's what you guys are using, this is also a trick that will eliminate that. But this twist that's I don't know if I can show you guys a better way, but this thing moves on the back, and the whole back of the car just flexes. So I came up with this this system. There's different ways to do it. There's some parts that they sell at Jake, so you know the guy that doesn't really want to customize or drill holes and stuff can do it. No, not that yet. The guys that don't really want to customize and drill holes too much, they want more of a bolt-on thing. That's kind of what Ricky's car got. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about these tie rods here. And what this does is the transmission is bolted to the chassis, and this is bolted to the transmission, and the chassis is bolted to the bulkhead. The reason why you got flex in the whole assembly is because there's nothing to triangulate up here. So no matter what kind of parts you have here, or if you have, you know, backup nuts or anything like that, you're gonna get flex out of it. So what I did was on mine specifically, I used the SCTC, or who's it? STRC's rear shock tower. And the reason why I did it is for two reasons. Number one, it's open right here. There's holes in it, and it's nice and wide and flat. And what I did is I drilled a hole in there, and I put a tie rod down, and in the same stock bolt location of where the wheelie bars and the traxxas mount bolt, I ran long bolts, and I ran those tie rods on both sides. So I started that in about the beginning of probably the end of 2018, and it really stiffened the cars, and a couple guys were looking at it, what's that do, and I explained it to them, and now just about everybody who's building a serious drag car is running this setup. So
just consistency.
As you can see, Ricky, if you come in here closer, Ricky's got the same rear bar, but this little block right here they sell at Jake's. And they can, and he's just able to bolt it there. I wanted a little bit more low profile and you know, sink this bar down and be more straight. His is more up at an angle, but it accomplishes the same thing. It's a very rigid rear end. This car has got it, same thing, anodized in red, of course. And then last but not least, Randy's car's got, now again, associated car, totally different setup, had the same problem, wiggly wheelie bar. He triangulated the whole assembly with these two bars.
But I was able to do it with the stock shock tower because it was wide enough. I was able to drill in and just a little bit smaller than the 3 mil.
For the guys that got Associateds real quick, why don't you come in here really close and you can show them where you drilled the hole and stuff.
I just drilled the hole right. I just eyeballed it.
The side of the shock
kind
tower.
Of flat. I want it kind of flat because I didn't want it to have a high angle or be too low to where it'd run into the gearing.
Now, anybody who's going to do this, what I do is I suggest leaving the shock on, getting this side of the bar bolted on, and putting it in there. And before you drill a hole, make sure there's, you know, locate it this way like this, in a position on the shock tower where it's not going to have any interference to the shock. You got interference or rubbing on that thing with the shock, game over. Yeah. So, I even went one step further. Didn't have to do it on the custom car. On the Ghost car, I went a little bit step further. I still had a little bit of flex in it, and I wanted to get rid of that flex. Now, this kind of looks kind of oaky, but it really does a good job here. And you can't see, there's certain tricks I'm not going to give out tonight, maybe in another episode, but the motor that's in this car being one of them, so it's taped up. But as you can see, there was nothing bridging these pieces here in the back of the chassis together. So the motor and this whole assembly, even though I had triangulated the top, was still just kind of hanging over the top of the tranny. So I just made a twisted piece, and that just really, really triangulates it and locks it in, and there is just absolutely no flex to this chassis. Ricky has done the same thing.
So the problem I've had with this chassis being the carbon fiber, I'm using the STRC wheelie bar mounts. just the aluminum ones, and the thickness of them is a lot thicker on the LCG chassis than the carbon fiber. So what I was noticing, even though I was triangulated here, I was getting a lot of flex down here. So I've taken some flat stainless plate and drilled and basically used my transmission mounts and tapped into the wheelie bar mount. So now it is completely solid. I get no flex whatsoever. So, but that's on this car. You know, every car is going to be different. Don't necessarily need these on the LCG chassis because this fits tightly over that plastic on the rear. So that's that.
Okay, thanks, Ricky.
Well, you need a little more audio. Having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. So one of the couple last things I want to go over, and this was important with my race car chassis. You know, if somebody, you know, I'm not coming online and going to start doing this saying, hey, this is the way it's done. But what I'm going to say is our cars are very, very fast, and this is what works for us. This is, you know, so I'm giving out some tricks here to some of the new guys that really want to kind of know this stuff and they can't get a straight answer on the internet. So one of the cars I did is, one of the other things that I found out about my cars is a lot of the guys were opening the shocks and they were adding spacers inside the shocks between the body and the piston of the shock, thus lowering the car. It eliminates a lot of the droop that the car has. So, I found this to not be the case for my cars. You know, a real drag car really wants to bite hard in the rear, and it really wants to sink down low. And even if that was the case with these RC cars, and granted, again, guys, I got to remind you, you know, a lot of stuff, if you're like me and you come from a real drag racing background, some stuff transfers over. They're toy cars, so some stuff doesn't. So, you know, what these cars that I found them in my slow motion studies of my own launches do is that these cars, once they're loaded down, can you come in here a little bit? Once they're loaded down and they have all the weight in them, as soon as you pull that trigger, as soon as you drop the hammer, the whole car lifts up, okay? So I absolutely don't think and have never found in my testing that the spacers in the shock making the droop less would absolutely, you know, help the car in any way. If anything, some of these cars, I mean, this thing's set up like an off-road slash still, and even though it's when the weight's all in it and it sits really low on the ground, as soon as it lifts, the natural motion of the chassis wants to lift, so you want to let it lift. Anytime you have something pushing the chassis in a way, or unloading the chassis, or doing anything that's disrupting the nature of how the chassis is trying to work, it's going to slow the car down. Whether that you know affects steering and drivability, whether that affects traction, every car might be different. So my recommendation is to not add any kind of spacers between the pistons and the shock bodies on the inside of the shaft. Let those suckers drop. If you want to position your shock in a way that you can get a pretty good ride height, you know, but you know, a really, really low to the ground car doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be fast, and that's what I'm getting at here. A good starting point as far as what's in the shocks for some of the new guys to start with. I have everything written down. I don't know exact numbers, but I know that in most of these cars here, you're looking at 20 or 30 weight shock wheel in the front shocks, and in the rear shocks, we're a little bit heavier than that. We're right around 6. We're not too heavy, but we're right around 60 to 70 weight oil in the shocks, and that seems to be kind of the happy medium that likes to work on these cars going down the strip. Is there anything else you guys want to add to this?
You touched on it with the adding limiters on the inside. I've seen a lot of people giving advice to the limit on the inside to bring it down. I don't know if you're doing it for looks or if it's going to help, but then you don't have any travel when you're trying to, you know.
Yeah, you want that car to lift.
You need the front wheels to be on the ground so you can steer, because you let out, you might lose.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So again, the back wheels, we don't limit those. We let them drop. because the car lifts, and if the car's natural attitude is to want to lift, then you want to let it lift without losing traction. And the front we do mainly because when it does come up, the front end does come up higher, and again, we don't want to lose steering. You lose steering and you got to pedal, you're going to lose a race. So other than that, somebody got a live feed here. Let's do a Q&A. Let's take 5 or 10 minutes and ask some questions. I don't know how many people we got watching.
50.
50 people, okay.
Nice.
50 people. Thanks, guys.
Jake, it's a great looking shirt. Thanks, Jake. I know, guy, if you want one, he can hook you up with one too.
Hey Jake, where's my shirt?
You weren't into it. You got into it right after he handed them all out. Sorry, bud. Daily $8 short.
Asking about the tape on the motor. What's wrong with the motor?
Yeah, why is there tape all over it?
There is tape all over the motor because and this is something I want to touch bases on too. Is 2 years ago or so, I figured it out really quick. I did a lot of testing. I spent gobs of money and just hours. I'm not married, so when I don't have my daughter, I spend hours and hours and hours. You guys are, sleeping with your wives or taking, this or a trip or whatever. I'm right here. Okay, I didn't mean it like that. Okay, it came out like that, but I didn't mean it like that. So when you guys are doing a lot of other stuff, I'm in here wrenching on the cars, and that's just totally
Totally snorted on that one. Sleeping with our wives.
With the tape on the motors.
Okay.
In your testing.
So what it is I helped. Anybody who's been to a race with me or a race that I'm at, I love to help people out. Like people like Tim Smith down in Southern California. A couple guys I know in the 405. We got Alabama, Mississippi, New York, Canada. I talked to a guy a couple weeks ago from Australia. So this is popping up all over. Anyway, 2 years ago when I had been into it for about 6 months and I started really figuring it out, I started helping people and I helped more. I was giving tires away. I was doing this. I was doing that. Well, fast forward a year, out of the heap of people that I helped, the couple people that I help the most are breathing down my neck. So one would say it's good for you to help everybody, but on the other hand, I kind of stiffened my competition and I have people breathing down my throat, which is okay. I want to race fast guys. I'm a fast guy. I want to race fast guys. But getting back to the tape on the motor, there's certain things I want to share stuff with guys to make them faster. We'll do a dyno night with the motors. We'll do tuning. We can do all kinds of different things. We can take requests in the future after we do a couple episodes. But I'm gonna save. I'm gonna say it once. I'm gonna save a couple of the tricks for me, and the motor that's in that car is one of my new tricks. So. We're gonna let people know basics of gearing and suspension. We'll have a tire night, a dyno night, but there's gonna be some things throughout the shows that you'll see that are either unbolted from the cars and missing. You're gonna see cars that have tapes or towels over stuff, and that's okay. That's the competitive edge, right? I mean, I gotta, I'm racing too, guys, so and you guys are getting good. So if you guys weren't doing good and you guys weren't getting fast, I wouldn't need to do that. So, let's take a couple questions. Anybody got any questions that are directly related to suspension?
Patrick Williams, what kind of springs are you using?
And what car, Patrick? That's another thing I need to go over too. So you see these high dollar cars, and most people, I've had a couple guys after a while say, as far as this car and even Ricky's car, if you got all that money wrapped up into their car, why are you using those cheap traxxas shocks? And a couple of reasons. I'll tell you right now. Number one, they're valved wrong, or right. They're valved perfectly. Yeah. Number two, they're smooth as glass. Number three, they're cheap as hell. And the best one, number four, they're light. One full aluminum threaded body shock. And granted, there's a lot of shock companies that are out there. There's a lot of shocks that are better looking. There might even be shocks that are even smoother. But these shocks, for what we're doing, work perfect. They're lightweight. They're, if you do smack something with it, they're really cheap. You can buy a whole new kit with rear shocks for like $15. I don't know. It's been a while since I've bought some shocks. But they work really, really, really good. So as far as springs go, on my cars, I'm using all Traxxas wines, and Traxxas, again, this is something that also has to do with your specific car. Not any car is going to be the same. If you take this car right here, it likes to run with the Traxxas reds in the rear, and I've had a lot of luck with the Traxxas pinks in the front, okay? But if you come over here to the Ghost car likes the pink compound in the rear and the whites in the front. And if you come over here, Ricky's got whites and whites. So it all really comes down to, again, Traxxas springs are really, really, really cheap. I mean, I think they're $2.50 a package or something. So you could go down with $20 and buy, a complete set of springs for every color that they have and every different spring rate that they have, and try out, maybe start with what you see here, but don't stop there. Tune for your car. So that's what I got to say about springs. There's
I run stock springs front and rear, the stock associated shock with the stock associated.
Well, there you go, associated guys. So that's even more awesome. So any other questions on there?
Hunter, in your opinion, what is too much speed control timing?
That depends, Hunter. That all depends on a lot of things. It depends on the weight of the car. It depends on how hard the gears how hard the car is geared. But I need to know what kind of timing. Are we talking M-belt timing? Are we talking boost timing for the hobby wings? Are we talking turbo timing? Are we talking, what exactly are we talking here? See if he chimes back in and I can give him more a direct answer.
To the live too.
Someone said different episode for that.
Yeah, and tell you the truth, that I will answer Hunter's question if he can get back on there and tell me a little bit more specifically what he's asking. But that will be a different episode. That will be a motor dyno night and a tuning night.
There's one for the more suspension. Dennis Coleman, with the Proline transmission, how much anti-squat do you run?
Again, that varies. The anti-squat is going to be different on every single car. And there's I would like to have a straightforward answer for every single question being asked, but unless, even if I was to build two exact same cars and I torqued each bolt exactly the same, and the car had the exact same parts and the same motor and the same speed control and the same tune and tires and body, even the paint, the cars are still going to be different. It's like that with real race cars too. You'll have Roush Yates build a team of 4 NASCAR cars for a team, and that's one team, and each one of those cars is going to have. Can you close that door, please? Each car is going to have a different temperament. It's going to have a different. Temperament altogether. So as far as anti-squat. Yeah, it's hard to really put my finger on exactly what to how to answer that, because just like the springs, you got to kind of play with it a little. This isn't also a video. This is to try and steer some of the new guys into the right direction. This isn't necessarily for me to give you specifics on what's going to work best on your car. The only way to do that is if you were to give me your car and I could spend an afternoon with it, because every car is different. So, do we got any more questions?
David.
David,
what's the best motor?
Best motor in ESC that would have to be covered in a different.
Hey, come on! That's a different. That's an absolutely a different episode. But I'm not going to name anything. But I'd have to say Hobby Wing all day, baby. No, there's a Hobby Wing was one of the first really high power pieces of equipment that we use. That's what I use. I obviously run Hobby Wing. There's also some other companies that are starting to up their game. Not that they were bad companies before. Companies like Tekin. Tekin run, they make some good stuff. We're not going to get into, what they make and this and that, because that's a different episode. But I like Tekin. Tekin's an American-made company. I'll always back an American-made company. I do love Tekin stuff. I have since the 80s. I started racing in 85. Tekin does make good stuff, and from what I've seen, You know, if you're running 6S or 8S or speed runs or something, then maybe the Castle stuff will work for you. Or if you're out in the backyard, you want to run your bone stock 4x4 slash into the side of your buddy's van, then maybe Castle's the way to go. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no two better companies right now on the market for this kind of racing, for this no prep 5-pound door slammer car class than the Hobbywing XR10 Pro and whatever the Tekin guys are running. If you're interested in knowing more information about the Tekin stuff, get a hold of Ricky. Ricky seems to have it under his belt pretty good. Randy's running Hobbywing stuff. We run very, very well with it. If you want to know how well, you can always come over to Santa Rosa and line up next to me. But other than that, I mean, that's a totally different subject and a different episode. It's going to be something that we're gonna cover at a later time. So,
Randy Hubbard, thanks for making the time to do this, all of you. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Thanks. No other questions?
I can't see any other
Kara
questions.
and Frank Fields, could you quickly cover wedge again? I missed it.
Yeah, sure. So let's cover wedge again. So this car, you can actually see, and it didn't really matter on this car because this car, we're not leaning on it. It's just got a 3500 Valenian system in it, and the car isn't really that fast. It's maybe a 35-mile-an-hour car. So, you know, as far as really leaning hard on the chassis with a 70,000 RPM motor, that's just not happening inside of this car yet. And if you notice in the back here, the chassis is set up neutral or neutral wedge, meaning that the car is neutral on either side. It's symmetrical. It's not asymmetrical. It's not, you know, got an inch over here of preload and a 1/4 inch over here. It is set up totally neutral. Now, when you start going with a Hobbywing or a Tekin and you start racing, you know, 55 miles an hour and up, you're going to start leaning on the chassis and the car at a neutral, 9 times out of 10, in a neutral setting right here with preload, you're going to find that your car's going to start going one way really hard all the time. And the way you can, you know, get rid of that is you're standing behind this car right now on the camera, okay? And let's say you are the person that's getting ready to launch this car. And this car's, you know, is without steering, is constantly going hard to the left, okay? Well, before I even get to giving my down bar for my fine adjustment, is you got to remember that when a car's going, it's pulling one way, it's leaning on the opposite side too hard. It's going down too far, okay? So what I would do is if this car was going hard to the left, I'd come over here to the right shock and I'd add another spacer, and that would straighten the car out a little bit, and I'd keep going and going and going until I got a decently straight. Now I wouldn't go as far as jacking this thing all the way down, because you can get the same effect with the wheelie bar, but the wheelie bar, the tweak that we do in the wheelie bar is more of a finer adjustment. You've got to get the wedge right first. So for you guys that are out there spinning donuts and going hard one way, give this a shot. As far as the shock tubing in the front to keep it from rolling too hard and the wedge in the back, give that a shot. I really believe that that's a way to fix a lot of these guys' cars. And when you get this wedge adjusted to straighten the car for the most part, you know, so you get it 90% straight and it's got a slight veer to it. Well, then you'll do the adjustment or the tweak in the wheelie bar, the preset tweak in the wheelie bar. And the rule of thumb for both of these is to always remember, if the car's going one way, the adjustment happens on the opposite side of the car. So if the car's going right every time, I'm going to give it more preload on the left here, and I'm going to hold that side up harder. So unless it only needs just going off a little bit, then I'm just going to give it a little tweak in the bar on that side. So whether it's this or the bar, it's always going to be the opposite side of the car that it's pulling to. So is there any other questions out there?
There was one about, let's see, David Bennett, slippery clutch. I hear a lot of stuff about this.
You know what, and I will cover that. Even though that has to do with a gearbox, it also has to do with chassis dynamics, in that a slipper clutch can greatly affect how the car's launching. In the 707, we have these cars so dialed that we are running the slipper clutch totally locked up. Now, running a slipper clutch to work as it's intended to work, to slip a slight amount before the car takes traction and takes off. If you're a new guy and you don't want to, you know, spin it out too hard, that's one thing that will, you know, help you regain the car a little bit easier. It'll make the car softer, but that's just the problem too. Once you start leaning on the cars, it's going to make the car softer. And what I mean by that is the adjustments you need aren't in the super clutch or in the slipper clutch. They're in the chassis. Once you take these couple things that I've explained tonight, that will allow you to launch the car under full power, go straight, and not have to run the slipper clutch. Why don't we run a slipper clutch? If somebody can give me, what's the number one?
Inconsistent.
It creates inconsistencies. So you do one rip. These are, especially with a hotter motor, it's going to take 1,000th of an inch or whatever off of the discs, and the next time you're going to have to readjust it. It's going to be something that's going to be all over the board. So it's an adjustment factor, and we got enough stuff here to adjust as it is.
Temperature.
So it's going to add temperatures. Absolutely good, Randy. And what is the main thing it's going to do that we really, really, really don't want in drag racing? Do you ever see John Force going, man, that damn car had way too much goddamn power today. I had to take out 2 spark plugs. No. Why would you get rid of power? What you need to learn how to do is tune your chassis to put the power to the ground. And utilizing a slipper clutch does just the opposite. What that does is it robs the car of a portion of the horsepower you're trying to drop through the drivetrain. So, like I said, if you want to play with it a little bit, by all means, everybody watching is free wide over 21. You want to go out and run your slipper clutch, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But, if you're going to be a heavy hitter someday and you want to really launch these cars hard, you're going to have to figure out the suspension so that you don't have to use the slipper clutch and rely on it, because it's going to let you down. So,
Sam Ellingford, what's your take on rear toe in?
Again, that's rear toe in is a thing that it varies with car to car. Okay. I believe that toe in, the heavy amount of toe in on the rear of these cars was mainly added for what these cars originally came from, which was an off-road world. The same reason why the Losi GRX2s and the Pro SEs and the Ultimas and RC10s and all those cars always had a little bit of toe in the rear. It helps the car track in some situations. Now, some drag cars will benefit from some zero toe arms or spindles, and some cars will actually react better to a slight amount of toe in. I personally run toe in on my cars. It's not much. It's like a half a degree on each side for a total of 1 degree. It's not much toe, but I do give my cars a little bit of toe in the rear. Yeah, so again, that's something that you're going to have to play with your own car. And if somebody really wanted to get into that and figure it out, there's, for most of these chassis, Custom Works makes adjustable arms that are really freaking trick. They're made out of Delron, and they got a gauge on them, and you can set them at 0 and run the car, and then set them at a half a degree and run the car, and you can actually change it with just one driver, and that's it. And you can play with it on your car. It's, some of this stuff... Again, pointing you in the right direction, not giving you all the answers, because some of them I don't have because I don't have your car. So, anything else, guys?
Get back to the questions. Come on, go away. Come on.
Okay, well, if that's all the questions...
You got anything over there?
Still got 52 viewers.
52 viewers,
I'll
okay.
pop back up here, don't it?
Well, then I might as well break dance.
Woo!
So again, we're just...
The worm.
Chase is dying to get in here.
You want to get in here, Chase? Our little...
Shout out to...
This
This
is
number
Ricky's.
3 in the cash days.
Yeah, he's Rick's been setting up some cars for him, and he's been a young man that's really impressed me in the last couple
Took me out
months.
the first race.
He took a veteran out like Randy, and I even told him that night. I shook his hand and I told him, I said, hey, Randy's not a duck. Randy's a fast guy, and you beat him. So that's good for you, dude. That's what it's all about.
It's my twin tonight.
Pulling him down and let it all hang out. So I really hope that this video might have helped somebody. If I got
You
one
got a
guy
shout
in
out.
Arkansas who just bought a stock Slash and he's got a pile of parts and he's pulling his hair out because he's got one guy telling him to fry a slipper clutch and another guy telling him, hey, a council motor is what you want. I want these guys to
Limit the inside
be
of
able to,
on the crown.
I'm very fortunate what I do for a living, and I have a lot of money to sink into these cars, and some guys just don't. And I was there at one point, and man, there's nothing that hurts more when you take a love that you have for these RC cars and you spend your hard-earned money on something that wasn't the right choice, and now you're stuck with it, or you got to sell it, and once you sell it, it's devalued. valued and you don't have the money to buy what you really wanted. And so I'm hoping if I can reach one guy in Nevada or one guy in Arkansas or wherever tonight, and get him to make the right choice, or one guy that, you know, has just been scratching his head at why his car's doing something and we covered it and it might fix it. If you can look at your car and say, hey, now I understand what it's doing now, you know, I'm going to be happy. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. So,
oh, there we go. We missed a question. Sorry.
so we got another question.
Jeff, can't say your last name. I'm sorry.
Are you running shocks all four corners? If so, take my limiters out. How high is too high? Well, how high is too high?
God.
That's pretty high. And you know when your mouth is getting dry, you're pretty high. No.
Do you need some water?
So, what's too high? What is too high? When your car has surpassed its traction capabilities and added a high center of gravity, I believe that's too high. I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of the guys that have old slashes sitting around and they transfer them over to make a drag car, the first thing they buy is an LCG chassis. You want the weight down low. As you can see here, let's take the ghost car here. Sit her down here. So I can turn. As you can see, if I just take this truck, and granted, this thing's only does 35 or 40 miles an hour, but this car, even though it's not the fastest yet, I could lean on this chassis with a 5.5 or a 4.5 and it would handle it just fine. But if you see, if I just barely set this car down, if you can bring the camera down, I mean, this thing's off the ground, you know? Now I let it sag on its own weight, and then I add a battery, and then I add the motor, or, you know, or the body and everything else, the body clips and all the other weight that goes into it. I let my cars adjust their own ride height with their own proportions and their own weight all on their own to a certain extent. I don't want to jack my cars up so they're sitting up here, because that just isn't going to work. And chances are, if you had your car that high, you'd probably have a lot of spring load or preload in the springs, and that wouldn't be good at all. So again, that's another question that's, I could go on and on and on about each car, and they just, they're different. So I believe that I am running... Yeah, I'm running exactly stock shocks in this thing. So this has got the slash short shocks in the front, the long shocks in the rear. This car's got the long shocks in the rear, short shocks in the front. The Ghost car has the front short shocks, and the rear are front short shocks. So this car is a little bit lower, but again, I let the car droop. I mean, look at the travel that I have in this thing. If you can see, this thing's got a lot of travel in it. So if it's sitting down like that, it'll still be allowed to pop up like it wants to. You know, I'd like to answer that better, but again, that's something that's going to be different with every car.
I got front shocks all the way around on this car.
And you can see, if you get down low, you can see how high this car is. I mean, this car, if I'm holding up, it's got no battery or body on it. I mean, there's a good two big old fat sausages under that thing.
And fully compressed, that's...
And again, it's sitting on the shock spacers. So if I take this thing and I emulate a hard roll to one side, you see how the front end is holding it up with that shock tubing, and that's exactly what you want to do. So you can run your car low as long as you can get your wheelie bar to run that low and you still allow your car to pop up. Because if you have limiters inside your shocks and the chassis dynamics want to pop up and it has no more suspension, you can almost pop the thing in the air. I mean, I don't know. I don't run my car super low. I've never really looked at, you know, what they would do if I did that. But I don't run my cars severely low.
Randy Hubbard. So no donk RC drags anytime soon, huh? If you want to start a whole nother class of donk RC racing, I'm sure you'll get more people.
Donk.
Some people will want to join.
Any more questions, guys?
We got anything you want to chime in last second?
For the new guys out there that are tuned in tonight, I'd really like to give some more exact. I feel like I only gave exact advice and exact options on on certain things on what I've covered here, and that's only because that's all I can do without having your car. So some of the stuff that I would end with, it's going to be different for every car. That's the nature of the beast. So I'm always willing to help somebody with their car. If somebody wants to come down to Petaluma and bring their car, I'd be more than welcome to go out and do a couple hits with them and make some adjustments. I want to get everybody fast, because if everybody's not going fast and having fun, then what the hell are we doing here, guys? So how are we looking for questions?
No, I don't think we got any other questions so
Okay.
far. Well, that was
Going once, going twice.
Well, again, I hope I can. I've helped somebody tonight. Somebody out there somewhere, just one guy, and I hope I can I made him faster tonight. So, and that's why we're doing this, is for the little guy. I'm really blessed for the racing seasons I've had in the area I live in, and the guys I race with. I'm blessed for having friends like these guys here. Just some fast guys, some good guys. Do anything for you guys. Yeah. So. Let's go ahead and we'll tune back in a week or so, and we will. I'll announce it beforehand. We'll do what we're doing now, so that we don't have a half hour worth of you guys pulling your hair out wanting to watch a video, and it doesn't happen. So
We've figured out the technical difficulties.
So
what
that's
aftermarket
it.
chassis? Which one? There's a couple different aftermarket chassis up here.
There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 different aftermarket chassis up here. So which ones are you guys referring to when you talk about aftermarket chassis? I mean, we gotta let's show them something real quick. So if you see the front end of the white car, I mean, that thing's high up in the air. Now this has no battery or anything on it, and watch what happens when I let go. It just sits there, and she's down low. And that's how it sits with all the weight and stuff. But as soon as I hit that throttle and I let her rip, Tater Chip, she lifts up like that, and I don't lose steering because of it. So let's see. Did the guy chime in asking what chassis?
No, not yet. Really good info. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in, Phil, David, everybody that tuned in, Bryce, Jeff, Randy, Josh.
If you guys are looking for an easy chassis to get, once again, Jake's has these hanging on his wall in his shop. You can also ship them out too.
Oh, best for a beginner.
Best what for a beginner?
Best chassis, I'm assuming. That's probably gonna be your stock box slash.
I'd have to say, the box.
Just for the parts you can get for it for drag racing.
The box stock slash, it's easy, it's cheap. There's an overabundance. I tell this to people all the time. That's why a lot of guys like small block Chevy 350s with the turbo 350, because there's so many of them rotting out in junkyards that. No, I'm just kidding. But the Traxxas car.
Yeah, they're next to the Ford.
This Traxxas chassis, I'm telling you guys, you can run 58 miles an hour with this chassis. If you guys set this up right and you gear it right, and you have somebody go through the tuning with you on whether a Tekin setup or a Hobby Wing setup, and you have the right componentry in the car, you can make this car really, really fast. So this car, I think the just a roller. I know that at Jake's Performance Hobbies, again in Rohnert Park, California, he sells sliders with no wheels or tires, body or electronics. It's just the car. It does not come with the Wheelie Bar, and that's $100. If you got an old Slash laying around, you can buy one of these chassis. What are these chassis, guys? About 25, 30 bucks? 29 bucks. There you go. And you can convert your old high center of gravity chassis into a drag car. This is a really good beginner car because there's the biggest following for it. Everybody makes 10 parts for it. So yeah, I'd have to say for a beginner, especially with somebody who doesn't want to throw $1,000 or $2,000 at it right away, get yourself a stock Slash. Go out and set it up right and use these tools that we're giving you to go out and spank people with a stock car. I mean, straight up. So.
Someone asked what oil weight. I'm running 20 in the front. It's roughly 20, 30 in the front.
I went over that in the beginning of the video for those of you guys who didn't catch it. I would suggest a 20 to a 30 in the front as far as oil goes, and then you want to go about twice that in the rear. I found that 60 to 70 works really good for our application. We're talking absolute no prep. 5-pound real Nprc cars, okay? Ones that are totally in the rules, not ones that got 4 cells, not ones that go out and run on sticky tracks. We're talking ones that you go right out in front of your house and put them down on the street and do a hit with. That's what we're running in these shocks. So,
oh, Bryce was best carbon chassis or G10.
Again, you can do all the same adjustments with all these chassis, and it comes down to a preference. You might like the look of this chassis here. I kind of like this wide front right here. I think it looks pretty bitchin'. It looks kind of tough. This is the same chassis, the exact same chassis, but in a G10 fiberglass composite, and it has those wide fronts like he has on his, cut off of them just for weight. And this, the Black Widow is a double deck chassis, and it has its own characteristics. The chassis that I built myself, I personally think this is, as far as no carte blanche, as far as the budget goes. This chassis, all said and done, designing it with the guy, cutting it with the guy, paying him for the materials and his time, I probably have about $400 into this chassis, just the chassis plate alone. So if you can see, this chassis is just absolutely beautiful. It's a double deck chassis. Who was that? Hey, we're trying to film. Go over there, kid.
Not a fan of the factory style. Yeah, me neither, Bryce. I'm just kind of stuck with the Associated short course chassis because there's not much for aftermarket chassis other than circle track chassis, which not really set up longitudinal. They're all off to the one side. All these guys with the slash stuff, they got it easy.
We do. We have a huge following. We have chassis popping up all over the country that are making different stuff. The Associated guy you're going to see in the next 6 months, I bet you that the deed to the farm that you're going to see all kinds of stuff with the Associated SET trucks just explode when this new car comes out. If you're a fabricator, a master fabricator, even if you're not, even if you're a guy that worked sheet metal for a couple of years, you probably have the mechanical aptitude to take Randy's car and buy a nice 2.5 or 3.0 millimeter sheet of graphite and make a chassis. Make it one of these. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much what we did with this guy. The only difference is we didn't cut it out on a bandsaw. We used a mill to cut it out. It's all CNC'd. So, if somebody doesn't want to spend a lot of money, again, I'll reiterate this. These chassis they're darn good. Now, granted, I will say the first thing when I start leaning and putting power into this chassis for my daughter, because she's at that point now, she needs more. It's getting boring to her with a Valenian in it. I'm going to have to swap out the tranny. Again, that's going to be a different night, but from what I've found in my own findings is the traxxas transmissions, as good as they are, they have a couple weak points in them, one of them being the diff gears. And so once I start leaning on my cars, all my cars have Pro Lines in them. So Pro Line is available for about $100. You get them at Jake's, you get them at A-Main Hobbies. They have them pretty much just about everywhere. It's a complete unit, it bolts right in the car. It's direct fit, unless you're doing something custom. Then you might have to finagle it a little bit. But the differential in it itself is mimicked after a bevel cut geared 8-scale differential, and it's just hands down tougher. The Associated, so I haven't done any testing with the Associated stuff. With the power that Randy's putting through his car, I'm assuming that they're strong enough. I know that I got to the point to where I had trick trannies, dude, when I first started this, and they were all HR, cases and this and hardened that and lightweight this, and I had $250 into each tranny, and I had to show up at the races with 3 transmissions because every other time I pulled the trigger and launched the car, I'd pop the diff out. So I had to run back to the pit and I'd have to change a whole transmission out. And I got tired of doing that. After about 15 rebuilds, I realized that I was playing Russian roulette with my transmissions. And once I got onto the list, I would be damned if I'm going to have a component like the transmission, a shitty transmission, let me down in a race. So if you've got it in your budget, granted, you can build the traxxas transmissions to be pretty damn decent. But if you're going to really lean on the car and you really figure out the tune and the car's really, really leaving hard, eventually I would suggest throwing the $100 bill in and getting a Proline transmission. So.
Yep, if I could fit it into the Associated chassis, that's really narrow in the
Actually, we have a guest of a car here right now that is just that, right?
Speaking on that car, someone asked about a mid-motor car.
Mid-motor?
Okay, hold on. This was a mid-motor car. Let me clear this up for a lot of guys. I have yet to see a mid-motor car run next to what one of these cars will do. I've had a mid-motor car. We've done some fooling, some testing around with it. We just couldn't get it to work. We after hundreds and hundreds of dollars and hours of playing with it, it's actually Randy's car now, and Randy actually just got finished putting it back to rear engine and
back to
rear engine. And what this is an associated SCT based truck or chassis, just like Randy's here's is, but it's got an aftermarket. What kind of chassis is it?
I believe it's a Murph Dog.
A Murph Dog dirt oval chassis, and it was set up as mid-motor, and it just never worked right. So what we've done, or what he's done, is he's gone ahead and rearranged the whole chassis and custom fabbed it to be rear-engined again. And on top of being rear-engined, he stuffed in and converted the Proline transmission to the associated stuff in the car.
Actually, no, I couldn't do the associated drive lines. I tried and tried and tried. I kept breaking my associated stuff, so I actually had to leave the Proline with the associated mount for the control arms and put Bandit arms on there.
And I will say, Randy, just hold on, let's see this. You just got this back together in this formation for the very first time in its life. How long ago? Like 2 nights ago?
Yeah, it took me 20. I did it in 24 hours. Went from mid motor, completely rearranged everything to rear motor. In
so that's an
hours.
associated short course truck based vehicle with an aftermarket Murph Dog flat oval chassis with stiffeners on the side with a Proline transmission. It doesn't get more custom than this, people. It just doesn't. And not an hour after he finished it, he sent me this dark video of him out in front of your house.
Yeah.
In the car, compared to after all the hours we spent on this car being mid-motor, it was night and day, just turning the motor back to the back end of the car. Now it's a contender. Now it's a lightweight Murph Dog chassis, just bitch ripper. I mean,
it's not a dirt oval chassis. It's a 1-to-1 designed for drag racing.
Oh, okay. I'm just going off of what I was told about the car.
Thanks for the info, Matt.
Thank you, Matt, very much for the info and clearing that up. I like Matt Kidd. I'd like to give a shout out actually to Matt Kidd. Matt Kidd's a very knowledgeable guy. He's a sponsored factory racer, really good friend of mine, and he gives us a lot of tips and tweaks and advice from more of a pro setting, because this really hasn't gone too mainstream yet. So this is a what chassis?
I believe it's a Murph Dog is what I was told when I bought it, but it just says it's his old car.
Oh yeah, this was Matt Kidd's car. Again, you know, all in all, I mean, the car was mid-engine, and we spent hours and time, and we did everything in the book, and we just couldn't get it to work. So for the guys that are building the mid-engine cars, my hat's off to you. Good luck. If you can get them to work, then awesome. We've abandoned the idea. So we like rear engine cars, and that's just what we run. So beautiful job on this, Randy. I mean, this car is this is a nice car. So everybody's got some nice cars up here. I mean, these are cream of the crop, fastest in the land. Spear you in the heart kind of cars. I mean, these cars are they're very, very fast cars. And I really hope that some of this stuff can transfer over into what you guys are doing with your race programs.
Place to buy them.
Bryce, I raced drag slot cars for years, so I'm going in head first, right on. I have a CNC plasma table. Maybe I'll mount a router, LOL. Well, if you start cutting chassis for Associated, let me know, because I'm definitely interested.
He's your guy. He's your guy. So look, I'm holding the wheelie bars here, and my front with no weight in it is totally squatted on the fuel line, and I'm twisting it. And you see how the middle of the chassis is twisting, but the front end just won't give. It won't let the car lean. And I've just fixed so many guys' cars with that modification. And what's that modification going to cost you? Like literally 20 cents in fuel tubing. I mean, it's nothing. So, yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Place to buy from.
Well, I'm glad I was able to get it and make it go fast.
Yeah, so we're gonna have more episodes, guys.
Here we go.
We got another question here.
How about the place to buy
does
from?
your car have Metal Gear? Which car?
Which car, Gabe?
Associated.
I think he's talking about the Associated gear.
Associated. It has metal top gear and a hardened steel idler gear and the stock plastic diff gear.
So somehow Randy has figured out the magic potion to not, to take a dip and just rape it, and it's they're not blowing up. So what the hell was that?
Interesting.
Okay. Wow. So
Okay,
this car's earned this right here, and she's gonna try and keep it in 2020. That's the crown here in the 707. It's a little beat up old crown that I built a couple years back for the list because we didn't have one. And again, by the grace of God, I'm able to do what I can do with these cars, and I understand them like I can, and I have the great friends around me that I can share the knowledge with, and help us all go faster. And damn it, I just hope I help somebody out there. So. Let's go ahead and end this.
And one more from Gabe. Yes, I did get the either gear from Jake's. It was axial part actually that was able to fit into my associated transmission.
27 tooth.
I don't remember what.
Serpent makes one too.
But they're out there. You get them for the B5. That's their.
Yeah, look around, guys. As far as setup stuff, you want to get that stuff from a pro. But as far as finding parts, if you Google the right thing, you will find what you're looking for. I mean, Korea, Japan, China, America. I mean, there's, and unfortunately, I'm a guy that, I'm a flag waving patriot, and I love American products. However, a lot of this stuff, is Japanese made and Chinese made, and let's face it, some of the stuff that they're doing over there is really, really freaking good. Sometimes you got to go that route. I don't know.
How about place to buy from?
Bryce Norval was asking about where to get the carbon chassis.
You can find the carbon chassis all over the internet. You can find RCRI makes a couple of good chassis. You can make your own chassis. You can go with a stock chassis. If you're local in the 707 in Sonoma County, Jake has a couple chassis in stock.
He will ship stuff too.
He will ship.
Well, he's got one. Let me clarify. He's got one kind of chassis, and you can buy it in G10 or graphite, right?
He's gone to carbon fiber only.
Okay, so he's only cutting carbon fiber. How much are these chassis?
$109. Everything you need right there. Just bolt on your suspension.
So it comes with the upper deck, the lower deck, all the hardware for it.
The battery strap, the battery mounts, all the hardware, everything ready to go.
That's a good deal. If you're one of those mid guys who can't spend, again, thousands and thousands of dollars on it, but you want a little, upgrade from your wheel. We call them wheelbarrow because when we were racing dirt oval, they would fill up with dirt. And we call them wheelbarrows. So, if you don't want to run the wheelbarrow, you don't like the look of that. It's one of the reasons why I waited to get into this, 3 years ago, was because that's what everybody was running. I didn't want to build just a stock plastic chassis looking car. I wanted to wait until I, find something like this to build kind of more of a race car out of. And it sounds like, Jake, I haven't tested too much with the chassis. I plan on doing that with Jake's Performance product here in the next couple months. There's a couple things I'd like to see changed on it, but all in all, bang for the buck, it looks like a really dynamite chassis. It's a pretty product. It looks high quality. The fit and finish, how was the fit putting it together? Everything fit good.
Perfect.
Hardware. I know Jake, if you're watching, I know you're a stickler about hardware just like I am. If I open some of these chassis, I spend, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on it. I get them home, and I'm like, well, what do you mean bolt that on there? That's fucking way too long, dude. That doesn't fucking work. Stop calling this guy, That'll piss you off when you're building a car. Again, you spent your hard-earned money. You want stuff to work. So if you live local, if you don't, you can call Jake's Performance Hobbies at 707-586-3375 in Rohnert Park, California. And there's several different... There you go. Trademark copyright not to be used like about ink. And if you're not local, again, there's a lot more of these chassis becoming available. It seems like they're popping up all over. So it's all comes down to preference. If you put the right tuning and the right time into a car to make it go straight with some of the tricks we've taught you here tonight with the suspension, you can, unless the chassis is way too short or way too long or way too heavy or it's tweaked or something like that, then I would suggest that you pick what really turns you on when it comes to the car. What gets your motor running. And Jake's he's got a really nice looking chassis here. I mean, this is a really nice piece. It's a nice weave of carbon. It really is. Jake's also, I personally use the RCRI bars. Jake also, this is a Jake's bar here. Jake also sells the 10-inch bars. If you're local, you're like, man, I'm only using 8-inch bars, or I'm using traxxas bars. Where do I get some of those 10-inch bars? And you live in Sonoma County, you can go by Jake's. He's got them on the wall. It comes with the wheels. It comes with all the hardware you see in the middle to make it the ladder bar, the two sides, and that's pretty much it. I think they're like $35-40, so it's pretty reasonable. So You get yourself some 10-inch bars, you tune the chassis just right, throw a Pro line in there, lean on it with some power, and you got a racing car, So let's go ahead and sign off, guys. Really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank everybody that tuned in tonight. I want to try and figure out, on my behalf, I apologize again for some of the technology that went haywire in the beginning. I would like to start to, in the next episode or two, transfer this over into being a YouTube channel. And I got to figure out how that works. Maybe somebody can reach out to me. I know that Charlie, if you live in Sonoma County, everybody knows Charlie. Great guy, always willing to help a friend. Maybe I can get some of that information from Charlie. And Charlie does his own shows, the Charlie Show, and Charlie's shows are absolutely awesome. If you ever have a chance to tune into Charlie's shows, the Charlie Show is awesome. We're not trying to steal anything here from Charlie. We're trying to mainly home in on just the drag cars and some of the suspension, some of the basic things that there's some of these hurdles that you got to get over before you can get to the big field, And I just want to get the guys to the big field, That's all I want to do, I want everybody to go out and go straight. There's nothing like putting all this money into this car and doing everything you think is right. You get bad advice on the internet. You show up on race day and you lose in the very first round, the very first race, because it goes out 5 feet and spins out, or your slipper clutch is too loose, or something stupid like that. So that's what we're trying to eliminate is some of that stuff. So if you're watching Charlie, hi Charlie. Everybody say hi Charlie.
Hi Charlie.
We'll see him Sunday. Sunday in Sonoma County is the second Sunday.
Yes.
Rock crawling
this weekend.
with stuff like that guy right there. Yeah, heck yeah. That's a crawler that's going to be out there on second Sunday. Second Sunday is going to happen at Flat Rock. I'll
Say hi, Daryl.
Sling some mud. He's actually our live studio audience. So this was taped in front of the live studio audience.
No, you got to say that again.
If you heard that was him.
I guess Gabe was running a watch video, so we didn't get some of the questions. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out to any of us.
Yeah, please do.
If you need more information on anything.
These lovely faces.
I'm always willing to help anybody with any associated stuff. Anything that I've picked up and learned myself, or stuff that I've adopted from watching the Traxxas guys that I've helped me make my car faster, better, more
easy for you to say.
Better. Butter.
Yeah, you guys, this is Facebook. This is 21st century, man. We're all friends. We all have the same love of these cars. These stupid toy cars, something about them. If you guys want to, follow us or reach out and friend us. If there's anybody watching that isn't friends with us on Facebook, friend us. If I click on your page and I open it up and there's RC cars in it, I'm gonna be like, hell yeah, it's another nerd, So, I love my RC nerds. So,
get some stickers.
With that, guys, we're gonna sign off. And again, thanks for tuning in. And I hope you guys found this, worth the damn and worth your time. And we'll do it again soon. I will let you guys know this week when the next episode will be, and more than likely next Friday night. And get a hold of us and ask some questions, and keep racing, man.
Rock on!
So, rock on.